in 6 months. Now, this was the time of the Borgia popes. Bad popes, really bad. And the bishop said, look, I'll be honest with you. Why don't you get baptized before you go to Rome? Because I don't think once you see what happens there, you'll be in the market anymore. And Abraham said, look, I'm a practical Jewish businessman. Business first, then pleasure. Goodbye. Bishop says, I've lost him forever. 6 months later, he comes back to Paris and says, I'm ready, baptize me. What? Oh, you didn't go to Rome? No, I went. Oh, you didn't do business with the Vatican? Yeah. You didn't meet the Pope? Yeah. And the cardinals? Yeah. You've seen that and now you want to join? I don't get it. Abraham says, I told you, I'm a practical Jewish businessman. One thing I know for sure. No earthly business that stupid and corrupt could possibly have lasted 14 weeks. Yours has lasted 14 centuries. It's a miracle. The hypocrisy of Catholics is a very strong argument for the infallibility of the Church. When popes were assassinating each other, they never changed the doctrine that said, now you can assassinate a pope. When they had 13 mistresses, they didn't say it's okay for popes to have mistresses. The doctrine remained absolutely pure, even though the practice never was very good and sometimes was horrible. That was very impressive. Finally, my seventh argument is it's beautiful. This is an argument, but it's hard to put into words. I was, I guess, musically deprived, and I had never heard any really great traditional Catholic music, and when I got interested in things Catholic, I bought a record of Palestrina and put it on. I was alone. And I said, I absolutely know that this music comes from heaven. This is angels. This is not earthly music. Earlier, when I was just a kid, didn't know anything about the Catholic Church except what my parents told me, namely that it was the whore of Babylon and very wicked and they were probably going to hell. Living in New Jersey, I went to New York City a lot, and we went to St. Patrick's Cathedral. And I entered that and I said, this is not hell, this is heaven. Whatever spirit built this is so beautiful it must be true. I know 3 ex-atheists who were converted by Johann Sebastian Bach's St. Matthew Passion. They all said to me, without copying from each other, this is how I knew there was a God. There is the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, therefore there is a God. Well, it's something like that happened to me with Catholic art and music and architecture. It's a kind of immediate evidence. You just see the face, as in nature. There was a doctor I met in Toronto who went to Zaire as a dietitian and saved the life of a dying tribe, and he was the first white man they trusted. So after he saved their lives, he told them about life in the West, and they were amazed. They were suspicious of cities. They knew very little about civilization. And they believed everything he told them because he was the great white father and knew everything. But there was one thing, actually 2 things, that he says they literally could not believe. They could believe that we could touch a button and blow up the world. They could believe that we could fly to the moon. They could not believe there was such a thing as an atheist. An atheist? You mean someone who believes no God at all? Not good ones, not bad ones, not one, not many, not the gods of the sky, not the gods of the earth. Oh, I know, one of them said to him. These people must be bound and gagged and put in a cellar prison cell all their lives. I think the origin of atheism is the lack of moving water. No one near a river or an ocean could be an atheist. The other thing they literally could not believe is that in America alone, 1.5 million mothers pay hired killers called physicians to kill their unborn babies. They literally could not believe that. They were very disturbed. They said, why do you tell us this horrible thought? This could not be true. We don't understand. One wonders who the primitives are. This immediate experience of the glory of the Lord, the beauty of the Catholic faith, which some of our modern liturgists are terrified of and want to strip our churches bare of, is a tremendously powerful argument. Sermons in stones. And the experience of becoming a Catholic, for me, was like the experience of entering a cathedral, which G.K. Chesterton uses in his book, The Catholic Church and Conversion. He says his friends, when he became a Catholic, said, oh, you poor man, You're going to bow down meekly and humbly and stoop low and enter the door of this old, maundering building, which is all stuffy inside. I pity you. And he replies, no, it's exactly the opposite. I've been in that stuffy, maundering building all my life, and the experience of entering the church is not the experience of going in, but of coming out. Out from a little cellar into a shatteringly enormous world, a great precipice with all the winds of heaven whistling through my hair. So I think our message to our non-Catholic friends and to the world has to be that. Come out. Come out into the splendor of truth.
After the Q&A,
Yeah.
you want to say a few things about that?
I'll do it before because I'm asking mine to be Catholic.
All right, good.
Before we have our question and answer, I want to sell some books. Frank Sheed's Theology and Sanity is probably the best single work of Catholic apologetics in the 20th century. It contains, for instance, the clearest explanation of the Trinity that I've ever read. He writes with clarity and power, and great book. Scott Hahn's tapes are already legendary. All of them are good. Anything that he touches turns to gold. And of course, there is that wonderful magazine, Envoy. So buy them, they're great.
The room with that logic. Here we have one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kreeft. I wanted to ask you about the invisible church, and if you could talk more about how we would refute that, because that seems like the first thing. If we can get past that, then everything else will fall into place.
The visible church defined that as a heresy long ago. It's called Gnosticism. Most religions have two dimensions, an esoteric and an exoteric. The esoteric is the hidden, invisible dimension that only the scholar or the mystic understands by his own private experience. And then the exoteric or public or visible dimension is the myths that you tell the masses, like Santa Claus, or in Hinduism, reincarnation, which most Hindus believe, but the mystics say it's only a myth because there is no individual soul. Christianity, like Judaism, has always been a public religion and a democratic religion. What is believed is exactly the same to the greatest theologian and to the simplest peasant. So it usually gets people upset, Protestants anyway, to be connected with the Gnostic heretics and Hindu mystics. That might be an in. But I think my argument was very simple. Christ is visible, therefore his body must be visible.
Doctor, my name's Dick from the local area here, Delaware County. And my wife is Protestant, so I know quite a few fundamentalist-type Protestants. And I've approached them on the Catholic faith pretty much like you have, the intellectual side of it, why it's a true church. Their argument is it's too complicated, it's too difficult. I have repented, I believe in Jesus Christ, and I'm saved. That's it. How do we get them thinking? And it's not all of them, but it's many of them. They just don't seem to accept the logic behind the Catholic.
I think the best approach to a fundamentalist is biblical, just as the best approach to a Jew is through the Old Testament scriptures. Start with where they're coming from. Instead of starting with specifically Catholic doctrines and trying to explain them, start with what we already have in common. And Scott Hahn can help you a lot with his tapes. He's done that ministry tremendously. That's the only way, the only effective way of ever arguing with anybody about anything. You've got to establish some common ground first. On the basis of this premise, which you deeply believe already, I will lead you now to its conclusions. So I'd say scriptural arguments.
Okay, I want to reiterate that I'm a Catholic. I love being a Catholic, and I'll always be a Catholic. But I have a tough question here.
Cool.
In regard to the message of our Blessed Mother last